Hello, this is Jake, and we're going to play some more 3-minute. Today I think I'm going to be playing knight f6 and knight f3 against everything. So we're going to try the Alekhine defense. Don't know it well, but, we're going to try to undermine the center quickly. I think I'm supposed to take on e5 here. And then knight d7, I think there's some worries about knight f7 line, so I'm going to play c6 first. Look to play bishop f5 and then maybe knight d7 to counter their knight. Alright. Do I need h6 before e6 so that knight h4 doesn't get my bishop? I don't think so, but I'd like to play h6 soon. I think I have time to now. The worry is if they can run me over in the center with a c4 and d5, which I'm a little worried about, so I'd like to block the e-file and get castled quickly. We have done so. Now, where can I pressure? Let's start with queen a5. Maybe bishop g4. I'm thinking of swinging the queen to h5 if they play b4. If they play h3, I suppose I can't. My queen really does not have a good home. Alright, let's keep the bishop on the board. Play queen d8 if they chase me. This is not a great position. Probably look to undermine with a5. So we can't let them have the huge pawns forever. If they play knight e5, I'm going to trade. I should be happy to trade pieces here. I am definitely cramped. And I would love to have one knight less. Maybe... Alright, we'll let them take. And they can play knight e5 after and win a pawn, but I'm hoping... Well, queen d4 falls there, so I'm hoping their pawns in the center are going to be a little hard to defend. And that maybe I'll have time for rook c8 to support the c6 pawn. They play like rook d1. Alright, so I'm going to take on d4, they take on c6, I take on f4, they take on e7, I move my king, they take on g6. Whew, it doesn't look great, but it could be worse. I can also play a queen d7 on knight c6 if wanted. Oh, but they get my rook at the end. So this is all a disaster. I can also take on c3, though I don't think it does much. And I probably might have to end up taking back on g6 with my king, because if I take back f-pawn, then the e6 pawn falls, and then their queen gets in. How can we minimize the damage? I think I'm going to play queen d7. And pre-move recaptures. Now if I can win the c-pawn, it's a shame I don't have the two bishops here, because that's usually a fair amount of compensation for an exchange. But if I can win the c-pawn, and I have an extra pawn for it, then I think there will be some hope here. So I'm going to immediately activate around it. I cannot take on a3. Also, maybe if I could get it on the king side. So maybe play knight e4, control the c5 and d6 squares so they don't have like bishop or knight d6 at an annoying moment. They can't push the c-pawn. And maybe induce some more weaknesses around their king. Now if knight c5, maybe they play bishop d6. That might be a problem. I can get in queen h4 after that, but they take, and play maybe queen e3, and my rook and knight are pretty awkward. Don't really see an alternative, and I'm low on time though, so I'm going to go quickly. Alright, they stop knight d3. I'm going to play queen h4. Look to try to sneak in. Maybe h5. Again, I'd like to open some lines around their king. I'm not really threatening to take because they take back h and then they might threaten rook h1. So I don't really have a threat. And my knight doesn't have a good square because I can't come into d3. b3 doesn't do much. Okay, let's just make a quick move. But my knights are very awkward and going to have to defend each other now for a while. I do not have knight c3. Let's play rook f8. But they did get a pair of rooks off. Maybe. Okay. Try queen f6. At least we attack something. But I have 5 seconds left, so this is not going to go well. Let's go back. I do threaten knight c3 now. Maybe I should pre-move that because I have 3.5 seconds left. If they play something like bishop g3, I'll just resign. But probably play queen f2. Ah, that's a better move. Yeah, okay, well, 0 for 1. Got a pretty suspicious position out of the opening. Let's try to handle the Alekhine a little better this game. Okay, we'll just transpose into an e5 opening. I like bishop c5 here. It's recommended by Krzysztof Sielecki in his chessable course on the Petrov. f4 is a fun move here because if the knight moves, e5 forks the pieces again. Now I'm threatening d4. So white usually plays a3, and then when I capture on c3, they defend the pawn on d4. They can also probably play bishop e3. I think there at castle and rook e8 is going to make the bishop feel a little awkward. I also would like to, at some point, perhaps play d5, bishop f5, and bishop e4, because that can be a nice outpost for the bishop. I think I'll start by castling. Their bishop's a little loose, so I'm always considering moves like queen f5, and there was a queen h4 check, but I don't think it did much. Maybe I should keep the knight and reroute it to a better square, because now they're threatening knight d5. So this covers d5, and maybe I'm going to come to f5, maybe I'll play c6 and d5 myself and get a central pawn. I think white's f4 pawn's a little awkward. So if white doesn't find something kind of forceful quickly to do, which they're attempting, then I might have a nice position. I guess I'll play queen e6 because they have so many pieces on the e-file. They probably have to play queen d3. And then I can probably play c6 and d5. I have to worry about a knight g5 there. Do I have d5 here? I think so. I thought they had to play queen d3 to defend both e3 and d4. This seems... They should play knight g5, I think, try to get some attacking compensation, but it shouldn't be anything. I can just take on e3 and play h6. So maybe f5, yeah. Okay, missed that. I think I can take, though. Alright, so I can take on e4 or take on f5, which is more precise. So if I take on e4, they have rook e5, and then they can save the bishop. So I should take on f5. Now they have knight g5. And I think with my material advantage, I want to try to trade queens. So I'm going to play queen g4. And maybe bishop f5 coming soon. Because white will have a lot fewer attacking prospects without their light squared bishop. Guess I can pre-move this. I should just be up in exchange here, but I'd like to trade off. They're better attacking pieces. Their worst attacking piece is the dark squared bishop, so I am the least excited to try to trade that off, but I'd like to trade off one of their bishops, preferably the light squared, and possibly their knight as well. Alright, now I do not have bishop f5. So they're threatening bishop g8, with the point that if I take king, they play queen h7, checkmate. Therefore, I could play queen h5 to cover the h-file. I could play f5. I think I like queen h5 because I might want to play f6 sometimes. So I'm going to try queen h5. Maybe play bishop e7 next, hit the knight. Because if they play a rook f1, I'd like to be able to reply f6. They do have bishop g6 there, so I'm not removing the only defender of the bishop, and my f-pawn is pinned, but that will stop them getting in as easily on f7. But maybe I can just play bishop e7, because the pawn is defended twice right now. So maybe I just want to hit the knight. Yeah, don't allow bishop g6. I don't think they can take on f7. They don't have bishop g8. Yeah, hit the knight, hit the only defender of h7 away. And bring our piece that's kind of loose on b4 back to a nice square. I don't really see what white should do here. I think they might run out of attackers. Alright, rook f7. Okay. So I think I can just take it. Ah, sneaky. Okay. So their idea is to take back knight if I play queen h6 or queen h4. This was nice. I did not see this. Yeah, and if I play queen g4, they play... okay. I think I have to play queen g4. Maybe they even have h3 here, though. Because I didn't want to put my queen on h6 because of knight f7. Maybe I could have put it on h4. Maybe I can put it on h4 next turn. Yeah. Oh, this was clever. It was very good. I guess queen e6. Keep an eye on the bishop. I'm just going to take that off. I'm scared of their pieces. Play c6 and rook f8. Maybe bishop e8 next. Queen g6. I have to play quickly. Really going to try to trade off their good bishop. Let's play rook f7 just to make sure there's never any problems. I'll play c5 next. Gotta play quick. Okay. They don't have any checks. Yeah, we got them. That was an interesting game. Alright, let's give a rematch. 1 for 2. Though I would have liked to gone back and look at that. Alright, so we're playing all knight f3 and knight f6 today. I'm going to play e3, just keep it simple. Defend c4. We're going to move into a Queen's Gambit. Kind of quiet variation with b3. Right. I kind of like to take on d5 and play bishop b5 here. Just try to create some kind of weakness or imbalance in their position. If they move their bishop, I then take on c5, so they spend an extra tempo to recapture. Standard idea in Queen's Gambit type positions is wait for the dark squared or light squared if it's white bishop to move and only then capture on c4 or c5. Now the question is what to do with the c1 bishop. I never really have the e4 break, so I like to play b3. If I really wanted to take on c6, I would do so at this moment because they've just broken the pin. But I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to try to sit on their isolated pawns. Just play bishop e2 so my queen stays hitting their d-pawn and controlling d4, because d4 is their key break to get rid of their potential weakness. If they play d4, I'll play knight a4, hitting their bishop. Yeah, but this makes a lot of sense for them. They want to get rid of their weakness. I don't have e4 or some way to avoid it. Bishop a3 comes with tempo. I can also take on d4. I think I want to play bishop a3 and then trade a bunch on d4 and play rook c1. That seems to me the most reasonable way to get all my pieces into the game. But I think black has done a nice job. They've developed their pieces. They played d4 to get rid of the isolated pawn. They're probably considering de3 here. Alright, now I'm going to take... My pieces may look a little weird on the edge, but the knight often comes nicely into c5. Yeah, rook c1. And if I play bishop f3 and something to c5, I like my position. It's not a lot, but I think I'm a little more active. They have clearer targets. Okay. I think I want to play bishop f3 before moving the knight, because I don't want them to get bishop b7 for free. I want them to have to spend a few turns on it. And now I could consider bishop c5, ba4, bishop d4, but they have rook d7 at the end. So okay, I'll move the knight. I think it should come to c5. That looks like the most active square. It's a little loose sometimes, but I don't see a way for them to exploit it. It's possible I'll sometimes play b4 to support it, though that does shut off my bishop. And their bishop is quite dominant on the central square of d4. Maybe rook e1 next. Just counter that file. Okay. I think I'll take bishop. I could have traded queens first. Now they have, yeah, rook d7. Sometimes I have bishop c6, though, so they have to be a little careful. They were duly careful. And I think I can't really keep the bishops. So I'm going to take and play maybe rook d1. Yeah. Let's bring out all our pieces. Maybe play bishop d4 next. I wanted bishop e3, but knight g4 I think harasses it. So rook d1, preparing bishop d4. Seems reasonable. Okay, that preparation didn't work. But I think I still want just bishop e3. Now, if they take, I recapture. With pawns on both sides of the board, endgames here should be a little better for me, with the bishop against the knight. But whose king is safer? Maybe theirs. I'd like to activate my king first. I'm going to play queen d3, because they cannot play rook d8, and they have no immediate entrance square. I think they will reply knight g4, to which I will play bishop f or d4. Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to play h3, and maybe get in king f1. And if I've played king f1 and they haven't played king f8, then I can look for a queen trade, I think, because I might be a little more active in the resulting endgames. Okay, didn't see this. Would rather have traded queens than rooks. I think it is easier to push this with rooks on than with queens on. And I also am not the sharpest tactically, especially when talking. Yeah, so maybe my king move created a potential weakness, because they can try to sneak in. I would like to put pressure on them such that it's hard for them to get in. Maybe queen f3, threaten queen a8. If queen h2, maybe I just play g4. Okay. We're going to try to take this. They can play... Well, they don't really have an entry still. If they play queen h2, I think I'll play queen c6 to keep g2 defended. And they still don't really have an entry, though I have to play faster. Let's play queen c2. Let's check. Keeps everything defended. And maybe queen d2. Think about queen d4 or bishop d4. Probably queen d4. I would much rather swap queens than swap the bishop for the knight. Let's try queen d4. They can take on e3, but low on time. Let's get the king out of there. I am up a pawn now. They can play knight e3 and queen b1, I guess. Yeah. And I think the stablest structure is going to be pawns on g3 and h4. Let's go to f3. Maybe consider coming to d5 sometimes. Right, my king's a little better than theirs. I'm going to have an extra. Ooh. Alright, so I guess I was winning in the end. This looks like a winning pawn endgame. Alright, 2 for 3. Maybe take a quick look at those last two. Because here their king has to move away, and if I get in king f5, they might have trouble. Because so if they play king e7, say, with the idea that king f5, king f7, and I have no infiltration on e6 or g6, I can play f4, and their king has to go to one side or the other, and I come in the other way. And then this kind of position, they can't save the f-pawn. In the previous game, so we got a 4 knights. I think a little more precise for white is castling before taking on e5, but it's pretty similar. And yeah, so I miscalculated here. f5 was interesting with rook f5. And I wonder what the computer will say here, because it was complicated, especially for a blitz game. Bishop e3. Ah, so it wants me to play d5 immediately. So castles is a mistake. Wow, okay, so d5. So the idea is they can't take yet because they're pinned. If they castle, I will take on c3, I assume. Yep, and then play bishop f5 and come into e4, and that's a nice square. So by playing castles first, did I miss an opportunity? They played castles. Yeah, can I now play bishop c3, bc3, d5? Huh. Okay, so queen f3 is interesting because it hits d5. I don't have bishop e6 because of f5. Now if I have to play bishop f5, they can take on d5 here. And rook d8, I guess, is a little awkward. They push f5, maybe play g4, g5 coming. This does look hard to defend with the rooks coming to the middle. So why can't they do this if I played d5 immediately? d5, queen f3. If castles, castles, we transpose, so I don't know why it's recommending castles. What this might come down to is chess.com's engine isn't particularly strong. Because castles, castles transposes to the line it just said was bad. Ah, but I don't have to rip on c3 here. Okay, so it doesn't transpose. Okay, so I hit d4. Right. Well, in the other line, castles, I was having to take on c3 immediately to play d5, and I cannot play d5 because the knight's on it. Ah. So I did have the opportunity of d5, and once I've castled and they castle, the knight's not pinned, so I do no longer have the opportunity to play d5. And if I try to play it, I've had to take on c3 first, so their d4 pawn's defended, which gives them time to counterattack against d5, and now I have an uncomfortable decision with the bishop. Okay, interesting. So black should just really look to play d5 whenever I can. Not even spend a move on castles first. Huh, that's very interesting. Alright, 2 for 3. Let's do our normal 5 games. Okay, knight f3. I'm going to play e3 and c4. Usually e4 is never too scary, you undermine with d3. I'm going to play b3, I guess. If I play d4, I think they'll play e4, and I'm not entirely sure how I want to react to that. So I'm going to delay a few turns. Just make, useful, slightly improving moves. I don't think a3 is too weakening, so I will play it. And now maybe d4. If e4, I think just knight d2. Okay, that's a reasonable move. Controls d5. Gonna keep developing. Still not sure where I want to put my king. I think they should play d5. That makes a lot of sense. And they have a nice position. I would like to play the f3 break at some point. I guess I'll castle kingside now. Queenside looks a little expanded. I'm going to play f3. I'm going to look to quickly undermine their chain once I have completed development. Probably not too bothersome to them, but maybe I should look to play b4, b5. Okay, so they might be looking to play queen g6. I'm going to see if they do it, and then I might try to close the king side with f4. If once they start committing more pieces there, the more it should favor me that they've spent time there, if I can close it, which I might not be able to. So their idea is g5. Alright, I think I need counterplay. So I'm going to try to open files on the queen side. Try to take on c6 and play queen a4. If g5, I think I'm just going to play g3. Yeah, so I'm going to take that and play queen a4. It's possible I'd need my queen for second rank defense, but I really think I need some kind of play more than anything, because this position is shaky. I wish my c1 bishop wasn't terrible. Where would I teleport it to if I could? I'd like to bring it to just b4, just try to trade it off for their bishop. If I could trade it for anything, I definitely would. It's one of those positions where, like, you want to improve your worst placed piece, but you don't know which it is because they're all kind of uselessly placed. Ooh. This allows my pieces to get into the game. I can also take on c6, but then knight d5. So I think I want to take knight, because they're going to play knight d5, we're going to trade there, and they're going to hit my knight on c4 anyway. So if my bishop was there, it would just run away, but if my knight's there, it can move further into the position, maybe come to e5. Okay, so they didn't want that, so I suppose I'll take bishop. And I think I have to take. I'll take pawn. Now I think I would want to just come back to e2. I have c2 covered, and I want to make sure they don't have knight g4. And I think then I want to start fighting for the b and c files. I'm on a7. So I don't think I can take this. So I'm going to play g3. Probably intending to take back. I'm not sure how. Alright, let's try to trade some pieces, because we have the two bishops, so if everything big comes off, we have a nice position. And now rook g8 we can meet with taking on c8 and forcing their rook back. Yeah, that poses an interesting question. Don't want to take back g, don't want to take back rook. So by process of elimination. Sorry about my squeaky chair, per always. If they play knight g4, just take. Queen h3 doesn't seem too threatening. What am I threatening? I might be threatening queen a7 now, because it does hit e7 too, so it doesn't feel too pawn grubby. I don't really see the point of this. I'm just going to take on a7. My pawns control the dark squares pretty well. Okay. Can we just bring in more firepower? Or bishop b5. Ah, no, bishop b5, knight g4. So we don't want to do that. So let's play rook c7. Ah, okay. So they're threatening rook g3, hg3, queen g3, and a probable draw. So I guess rook f2? I want to try to win this one. I can pre-move hg3. Okay, rook g2. No draws. They should just move the bishop, probably. They can take on f4, I take on f6. Let's play queen f7. Pester the knight. I think I can take on d5. I'm hanging e2 and g2. Well, I was lost by the end there. I definitely blundered that one. Okay, again, I should go back and look at that. I'll try to after. But 3 for 4. Let's play the Sicilian. I don't think I've played that on stream yet. Against this, I quite like e5. Just make sure they don't have d4. And play against f4 a little. You normally place your pieces a little awkwardly. I'm not sure bishop d6 is quite right here, but let's take back d so our bishop can come into the game. My knight usually wants to go to e7 and g6. f6, it can often be pushed away or pinned, while on g6 it's significantly stabler. Yeah, I guess b6. Sometimes you go for f5 in these lines, and you play quite actively. Maybe I'll try that, though I don't have e5 under control, so maybe they just go there. So I think instead I'm going to play knight g6. I have the bishops. Pawns are a little silly. But where does my bishop go? I could play h6 to stop knight g5 to prepare bishop e6. I could play f5. I do have e5 under control now. Let's try that. That seems a little more active. I'm going to take back bishop. It does allow bishop g5 type stuff to pester me a bit. I don't know. I can play f4 if I want to try to set up some kind of cramp. I can play queen d6 and dream of mates on h2. I don't see the problem with that. Let's dream. Still don't know what to do with my light squared bishop, and it does need to move at some point to get the rook out, but maybe just bishop d7 next, and then rook e8. Alright, well now f4 looks a lot more tempting. Because if we can trade my f-pawn for their g-pawn, their king looks a lot more open. So we're threatening knight h3. Now we're threatening like bishop h3. What about queen h6? Kind of the sneaky threat of bishop h3 in the air. Keep an eye on h2. If knight g5, which defends h3, maybe just bishop d7. Intending to recapture on f8 with my other rook. My bishops are very good, aimed at their king. And you'll notice the doubled c-pawns actually does a nice job preventing his knight from coming to d5. Do I have bishop h2? If I have bishop h2, knight h2, queen g5, because their queen's quite loose. So I could also play a rook f3. Because rook f3, queen g5, so rook f3, queen h6, rook f1, gh6. So many good options. Alright, so bishop h2, if king f2, rook f3, and I win their queen. If king h1, rook f3, queen h6, rook f1, gh6, king h2, they get the bishop at the end. So I think I should just play the simple rook f3 and go a piece up. But I thought bishop h2 would be cute. Yeah, now we just have an extra piece, and our bishops are phenomenal. I'm going to try to trade their rook. I'm going to take on a2 if given the opportunity. Yeah, just grab stuff. Bishop c1. You know, I'll just take on h2. I was going to play bishop f4 to hit the knight away so the other bishop could get out, but no real need. And my bishop stops their king approaching my other bishop, because the bishops are so good. I'm just going to play b5, a4, and rush the pawn. So even though they can now run over and grab this bishop, I'm going to have passers on both sides of the board. This is pretty trivially winning. Okay, they didn't want that. Let's just keep going. They can play knight d7 to c5 and block the pawn on b3, but yeah. Alright, 4 for 5. Seems like a reasonable session. I think this is one of those positions where when you see queen g5, the instant feeling should be, this queen is loose. You know, what's happening with its protectors? And I played rook f3, and they can't take back because of queen g5, and I knew I could take after with check. The other option was bishop h2, and on king g2, queen h3 wins, because if king f2, queen f3 is mate, and if king h1, then if nothing else, bishop f4 wins the queen. But they have king h, and if king f2, then rook f3, and I pick up the queen. So they have to go king h1, but here I couldn't find a move, because I have discoveries with the bishop, but they can trade queens against all of them, and I'll have to recapture there, so I don't have the tempo to grab something. And I can still play rook f3, but now I have a worse version, because they get my bishop at the end. So I wanted bishop h2, and that was the first thing I saw, but then it became clear that rook f3 was the move. And I guess it's an example of something that happens in calculation, where in the bishop h2 lines, I saw that rook f3 was a move, right? And that helped me look, oh, maybe I can play rook f3 in the first position too. So a useful thing to do when calculating is if you see an idea in one line, try it in another. And anything interesting happen in the other game? Okay, go by. Right. So, got this somewhat uncomfortable position. Maybe here I should just play d4 immediately. Okay, now likes knight c3. They should be somewhat interchangeable. And should I be going d4 quicker? Probably. So d4, e4. Knight d2. Say they continue like they did. Do I want to quickly play f3? Yeah, okay. So I should be looking to undermine much quicker than I did. Just continue trying to apply pressure to their pawn chain. And they don't have bishop e6 yet because b7 hangs. And now the computer's very excited. And that makes some sense, because I'm going to give them a vulnerable pawn on d5. Okay, so I have to play much quicker against their big center. I played very slowly against it, and I suspect around here the computer will be very displeased, and it is, -1.5. Was f4 right? I thought I want to close that side of the board. Yeah. And then I want to, as quickly as possible, get counterplay, so b5. Ooh, I like c5. c5 also makes sense, because c5, I stick the pawn on c6 and then play b5 and take there and can play queen a4 and really make c6 a weakness. So I thought a bit about knight c4 versus bishop c4. Computer likes knight c4, I'm glad. Though not really giving it enough time to decide. Yeah, and it wanted me to counter the c file. I can't take an a7 because of rook f2. I have to take ef4. And it wanted me to trade a pair of rooks first. I guess that makes sense, because in the way it played, black got to keep one rook defending stuff and the other rook could get active on the g-file. And so trading off one pair of rooks before taking on a7. I would have been worried about rook f2. So why does that work? I'm just faster, I guess, because I hit e7. Now if I hit e7, we draw. They take on e2, they're threatening mate, and I have to perpetual. So instead, the key is rook f2. This would have been hard to see. So if rook b2, wow, bishop f1. Interesting tactic, right? Because the rook opens up against their rook, and the bishop hits the queen. It's an interesting fork. It's giving e3, rook g2. That definitely favors them. Now I do not have the bishop f1 threat. And if they take on b2, I guess I take on e7. If they check, bishop f1, and they don't have e2 because my queen defends it. Huh. It's a really complicated game. Would have been hard to play this properly in Blitz. And I blew my advantage at some point in here. I was right to take on d5. That's good to know. And on knight g3, I pre-moved, or I played quickly because we were both low on time. Rook d6, and rook d6 allows knight e2. Where I'm still winning because the queen defends g2, which I didn't actually notice. Okay. Interesting. It's giving queen g8, which is very cute, because the point is rook g8, d5 check, rook g7, and I get a back rank, because my bishop opened up with their king in the corner. That is very cute. And if king g8, then of course rook g3 forks queen and king. So queen g8 would have been a really cool move to have made. I don't think I would have found that even in a longer game. But once you see the possibility, once you look at kind of checks and captures and see, oh, there's queen g8, rook g8, okay, well now let's look at the next check. Bishop b2 can check, so d5 check. They must play rook g7 and we get the back rank. And if king takes, then just rook g3. So just checking checks and captures would have been a nice way to close out the game. But let's pretend I knew what I was doing because the computer does currently favor my move. Alright. Interesting games. Went 4 for 5. Peace.